Okay, well, I guess we'll get started. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Amanda Burgess, editor of JourneyWoman and your facilitator for this discussion today. This is the third in our series of chats on once in a lifetime experiences. So far, we've spoken about the Northern Lights and the Camino. And today we're going to be talking about a mountain range that is near and dear to my hiking heart, the Rockies. We recently conducted a travel dream survey on once in a lifetime experiences. Some of you may have taken it, and the Rockies was one of the top selections by JourneyWoman. Couple of quick notes on how tonight's going to run before we begin. The session is going to be recorded, so we can use some of your verbatims in editorial, and we'll also share the video on YouTube. If this is your first time joining one of our events, I just want to highlight a couple more ways that you can get involved with our community. We host community calls on the East and West Coasts, which Sandra and Marilyn attend every Friday for the East Coast, and we also hold them in Australia and New Zealand several times a month. If you haven't joined one yet, please think about it. We host a monthly book club where we read travel-themed stories that are written by women, and tomorrow night's discussion is on the Camino, which is also one of our once-in-a-lifetime experiences, and you don't have to have read the book to join in the discussion, so feel free to go and hear about the Camino from a bunch of women. A bit about our survey that we ran. We run regular pulse surveys to help us design editorial because we're a small but mighty team writing articles with the help of our wonderful contributors. We want to use this session tonight to gather your tips and recommendations on the Rockies if you've been, and if any more information is required when we are writing our editorial, we will reach out to you directly. I'm going to ask a series of questions of you. We have a fairly short, small group, so you don't have to keep your answers really, really short, but try and be brief so that everyone has an opportunity to share and speak. And we are looking for your honest, unvarnished accounts of your experiences, the truth as you see it, so you don't have to pretty it up for us. And I just want to start by asking who all has been to the Rockies or had an experience in the Rockies at all?
The Canadian Rockies?
Doesn't matter, Canadian or US. So Betsy, so 3 of you, anybody else? I can't see, the other people aren't on camera. Sherry or Susan, have you been?
No, I have not been to the Rockies. That's someplace that I do want to go. The Canadian Rockies, right?
Yes.
I have not, and it's on my list, so I definitely want to go.
Okay. So I want to ask the people who haven't been first. So Sherry, first, what is it about the Canadian Rockies that draws you? And what do you want to do there?
Oh, just the beauty. I've seen photos, of course, but it's just the beauty of nature, just to be in the nature there is, I'm just craving to do that and to be there. So I would have to say that's what's driving me.
Amazing. And do you have any questions that we can answer for you before we launch into people who have been?
Not exactly. I was thinking, now are you talking about the train that you took through the Canadian Rockies? Is that?
I didn't take the train, but some people may have, and I know that Sandra has, and many people in the community are definitely interested. So if you have any questions, Sandra has taken it.
Yeah, I would just like to, know the best way to see the Canadian Rockies, the train or not the train. So I'm just here to gather information and see what it's all about.
Okay, well, you'll definitely get a cross section of experiences tonight then.
Okay.
Susan, have you been to the Rockies?
No, I haven't.
And what draws you? Why are you interested in going? What do you want to do there?
I would like to see mountains. I love mountains. Mm-hmm. And I really haven't had a chance to explore much of Canada. Mm-hmm. So I think I had a trip actually signed up with Road Scholar before the pandemic hit to go to Banff and to do like a week trip. And then that disappeared when the pandemic hit. So I never got to do that. I'm not sure they've started that up again or not, but I've heard it's just beautiful, and that's why I'd love to go there.
Yeah, Banff National Park is absolutely beautiful. I'll let everybody else speak first, but then I'll talk about a few of my different experiences in the Rockies. Sandra, do you want to tell us about your train adventure? When you went, what you did, what made it amazing?
I've been there a few times. I guess I can combine some of my adventures together.
Sure.
The train is a magnificent way to go across the country because you can relax and see the scenery and not be worried about driving or, worrying about what the road conditions are. It goes through anything. And also with the train, you can get off at different cities and get back on again. So you could take the train to Calgary and go up to Banff, and then you could take the train from Jasper to Edmonton, then you could take the train all the way across through the mountains to Vancouver. So you could do it in pieces and see different parts of the Rockies and that part of Western Canada. That's about the train. The train surprised me because I didn't realize sleeping on the train was hard. You get the impression that it rocks you to sleep. I get motion sickness, which is crazy for a travel journalist. Two things. One, the motion isn't always the motion you want because sometimes it's going back and forth and you want to go side to side. And also trains screech as they go around corners at night. Noises that you don't expect. Having said that, it's a wonderful way to travel, period. It's just one of my favorite ways to get anywhere. So I would put that aside and enjoy the journey on the train. Now, I don't know if you want me to talk more about the location and what to do, or
Yeah, absolutely.
yes? Okay.
Yeah.
Going up to Banff, I would say it's one of those places on earth, and I've traveled a lot, that I went back just to spend my birthday on the top of the mountain. So there's a gondola that takes you up to the top of the Rockies, and you can actually walk from one tip to another tip on this very even, broad, it's not hiking, it's just a walk across the mountaintops. And you honestly feel like you're on the top of the world because all you can see is mountaintops to the left, to the right, and straight ahead. And there's a restaurant on top when the gondola ends, and you could have a meal there. So you can spend the day on top of the world. So that is one of my favorite places. Another thing to do when you're in Banff, there are hot springs. So if you like that, I didn't know, and I didn't have a bathing suit. And when we went, you could actually rent a bathing suit. So I don't know if you could still do that. We were there in the winter at one of our trips. So we couldn't believe people were swimming, and you know what Canadian winters were like. So we rented a suit, and it's, I don't know, 10 below zero, and then you just go through a tunnel into these hot water and you don't really feel the cold outside. So that was kind of spectacular. There's another beautiful lake in the area called Moraine Lake, and it's so beautiful. You think you're looking at a Disney movie. So you're looking at a turquoise lake with what looks like mountains painted in the distance and a blue sky. So I would also put that on your to-do list or to get to list. And then Jasper is a little bit of a train ride up, and Jasper is where you can get onto the ice fields. So you actually walk on a glacier, well, drive on a glacier. I guess you could walk. And they have these giant, I'll use the word snowmobiles, but it's like 10 times the size of a snowmobile. And a bunch of people get inside, and you travel across the glacier. And that's a pretty spectacular experience. And I'll just end with, if you have had enough of nature at that point, you can actually take the train to Edmonton, go to the West Edmonton Mall and shop the whole day. So get a lot in by taking the train.
And so did you, on the couple of times you went, did you go alone, with a partner, with a tour?
Once I was alone, once I was with a partner. Once I was not with a tour, but working with the tourism commission up there. So they were kind of helping me get to places.
We've had a couple people join, Jackie and Gail. Just to catch you up, we are chatting about our experiences in the Canadian Rockies. Have either of you been?
I have
Who's this? Who is it? Gail or
Gail. Gail.
Okay. And Jackie, have you been?
No.
Okay. So we're going to let all of the people who have been talk about their experiences. And then Jackie, maybe you can tell us what it is about the Rockies that appeal to you and what you might want to do there. Do you want to tell us now?
No.
Okay, no worries. You can just listen. Marilyn, you want to tell us about your adventure in the Canadian Rockies?
Yeah, I've been a number of times. I was thinking right back to the very first time. I was born and raised in Montreal, so I grew up in Eastern Canada. Yeah, I'm okay with Montreal. And I will always remember the first time we drove from Calgary into Banff. And I've traveled and I've seen mountains, but I had no idea that Canada had mountains. Like we're not talking about a little hill. I think of the Laurentians, and Laurentians have little hills in comparison to something like the Rockies. And I just remember totally being awestruck, like just absolutely, I can't believe I live in this country. So that was a memory from quite a number of years ago. I live in Edmonton now. So for me to get to the Rockies, generally speaking, depends if I want to go to Jasper or to Banff. So Jasper is about a 3-4 hour ride from Edmonton, drive rather. And if I want to go the other way and go to Banff, it would be 3 hours to Calgary and then another hour and a half into Banff. So it's quite accessible for me, and I've gone a number of times. I really want to coattail on Moraine Lake. It is one of my, again, so beautiful, one of my favorite places to go. I want to give you some practical information though. If you're driving and you want to park in the parking lot, because it is a tourist attraction, even though it's beautiful and it's natural, it's a tourist attraction. You better be prepared to arrive there by 7 a.m. at the latest.
Earlier.
Otherwise, you're not going to get a parking spot. You're just going to, either they'll block the road off and say, no, can't do it. If that's the case, they have a parking lot that's outside of, what is it, Lake Louise, I think it is, outside of the town of Lake Louise. And you can take a bus. The bus will take you up there, like a shuttle bus back and forth. So it depends on what you want for your own experience. So that's a very practical thing to think about. So yes, absolutely. The other thing is something that I'm going to be doing, I hope, this September. I'm going to be driving from Edmonton to Vancouver Island, and I want to take some time to go through the Icefields Parkway, because even though I've driven it, I've never stopped at the Icefields. And one of the things that I want to do is I want to go on that platform that overhangs, the one with it's like see-through glass thing. I'd like to try that. I haven't done that. I think I'm okay. I'm not generally afraid of heights or anything, but we'll see what happens with that. And something else that's practical, I don't know if I should yes, I'm just going to say it. Kananaskis is another lovely place to go. So that's on the way from Calgary to Banff. You can go into Kananaskis. The wonderful thing about Kananaskis, now this place is closed right now, but there's a place called the William Watson Lodge. And this lodge was designed for the residents of Alberta. And these are magnificent cabins for people with handicaps, with disabilities, I should say. And they charge you like $30-40 a night, and you have a very comfortable accommodation. Now they had to close it down because they were doing some renovating, but if you're not thinking until, maybe in circa 2022, 2023, and that's something that you may need to use or want to use, I would say check that out, because there's no better deal. You're right in the middle of the mountains and you've got accessible paths. Everything is made for wheelchairs, and they have showers that have, so that people can hang in the shower, they rotate, like they're really designed for people with disabilities. So that's something to consider for some of you. Yes, I did the Banff, the hot springs in the winter, and absolutely there is nothing that can compare. Nothing.
No.
Middle of winter, you think you're going to be cold,
Yeah.
but it's so magical. I mean, if you've never experienced it, you have to. That is a must in my books anyways. It's hard to describe. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of things to do. I would, my daughter went, what do you call it, dog sledding. She quite enjoyed that in the winter time. I would like to do a horseback trail, like maybe travel on horseback for a week or so, just do the old cowboy trail. I haven't done that yet, but that's something that I'd like to do. And I'm just really, wanting to hear from the rest of you and see if you have any favorite spots that you've been to, out of the way places. Jasper, if you want to go to the Jasper Park Lodge, it's expensive. A few $100, $300, $400, $500 a night, but you can go and visit. And they have this lovely walking area and a nice restaurant. The same thing with Lake Louise, same idea. You don't have to stay there. You can go, you can make use of the facilities. The Jasper Park Lodge is less touristy than Lake Louise. I'm not sure if it's because it's not as well known, or I don't know why. But anyways, lovely place to go and visit and just walk around and feel really at peace, I guess I would say. Yeah. So yeah, that's it for me for now.
Thank you, Marilyn. A couple other notes about Moraine Lake. If you are a person that likes the sunrise over that glacier lake is spectacular. You have to get up really early and beat the crowds on that one. There are cabins that you can rent all around Moraine Lake. You can go stand up paddleboarding or kayaking if that's your thing. And if you like taking photos from that perspective, you can't beat it. Really amazing.
Yeah.
Betsy, want to tell us about your Rockies experiences?
Oh, okay. I didn't realize it was Canada only, but
You can talk to us about the US side too.
oh, okay. Yeah, when I was a kid, a teenager, I got a job on a dude ranch in the Rockies and near Durango, Colorado, and near Bayfield. And so I wrangled dudes and did stuff like that there. So that's how, and then I took a trip, but it was up the Cassiar Highway with my dog, a 2-month odyssey. So I wasn't exactly in the Rockies of Canada, but I was along the coast there whenever I could get to the coast, and then yeah, on up. And I went all the way to the Arctic Circle.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was very amazing.
Gail, did you say you went to the Rockies as well?
I did. I was there 17 years ago now. We flew into Calgary and then drove through Banff. We had a day at Lake Louise. We stayed at Emerald Lake, which is
Emerald Lake is gorgeous.
It's just mind-bendingly gorgeous, really. Matter of fact, it was spring, but I had to get at least a toe in that lake, which was freezing cold, but it was a fun event anyway. And we took one of the tours to the glacier. So my recollection is it was a bus that had about 16 tires that were all the size of me.
Yes.
And getting off and standing on that ice just gave me a perspective of how big the world is and how beautiful the world is, more so than almost anything else that I've experienced. And I've had lots of great experiences, but that was really tremendous. And then I'm not sure that you consider Glacier National Park, the Rockies, but the American side of the park. I also had an opportunity a couple of years ago to be there. Also a tremendously, breathtakingly beautiful place.
Absolutely. Now, if you are a person that likes coming to Canada in the fall when it's a little cooler, there's a special time of year in Banff National Park and Larch Valley where you can see trees turn a brilliant shade of gold, and the larch trees are only in that area. And it is well worth taking a hike into the mountains. It's about maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours up to the top where they have the most larch trees in this valley on top of the mountain. And it's spectacular. Like, it is one of the highlights of Banff National Park. And I timed a visit to a friend's in Calgary just in time to drive out there and go see that as part of my trip last year. And it was amazing. I loved it.
Amanda, where did you say that is?
It's in Banff National Park. It's called Larch Valley.
Larch Valley? Okay.
Larch Valley. And yeah, like I can show you. I don't know if you can see that picture of me. Like, look at those trees.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it's
Oh,
just
nice.
all the way up. And it's not too cold. Like, it's pretty temperate there at that time of year. It's not freezing cold yet. Like, I did need to wear a hat, but I was peeling off my layers as we were hiking. And if you are a hiker, I once hiked, it was a 27-kilometer hike in, but you can fly on a helicopter if you don't want to hike. I went from Banff National Park in Alberta all the way to Mount Assiniboine in BC. So you cross the border into BC, and it's a 27-kilometer hike. And then we stayed in a cabin on top of the mountain at Mount Assiniboine, which has glacier lakes everywhere. And then we did like 10 to 15-kilometer hikes in different directions every day. We spent like a 5-day long weekend there one year. Spectacular. We camped halfway up the mountain. We did 17 kilometers our first night, camped halfway up the mountain, and did the remaining kilometers the next morning. Really, really, really amazing. Highly recommend. If you like camping, if you like hiking, and it's not too difficult, there's an easier way up the mountain. Or if you like a challenge, there's a route that we ended up taking with many, many, many switchbacks.
Sorry, I think I'd take the easy route.
Right? But you can actually just take the helicopter up and camp in cabins on the top of the mountain. Like, you don't have to do the heavy hike in. And you get to see all that spectacular nature without having to do. People carry packs in, and it's hard. Or you can send your
Larch. That's Larch.
Larch. Oh, this is called. It's a hike from Banff to Mount Assiniboine. So where I actually camped was Mount Assiniboine, but where you see the trees is Larch Valley in Banff National Park.
Do me a favor and spell the mount that you're saying.
Yeah.
Mount, so mountain, Mount Assiniboine, ASSINIBOINE.
Okay.
Thanks.
It sounded like it started with a D. That's why I was asking you.
Yeah, and it's difficult to get a cabin on there in the summer because it's lottery in Canada. You have to call like the National Park Service and wait on hold in the lottery forever and see if you get a spot in any of the national parks for these very coveted camping spots. But sometimes you luck out. Camping in Emerald Lake is amazing too, if you enjoy camping.
We stayed at the lodge when we were there, though. That was pretty nice, actually.
Oh, absolutely, it would be. I tend to rough it a little bit more. I like being really close to nature.
But you're a little younger than I, so that's the reason.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely we're seeing the larch trees. Anybody else do anything else in the Rockies? Or have you heard of any experiences that you want to do? Has anybody done any of the Indigenous tours or experiences it that way? That's something I'm definitely interested in. There's so many Indigenous tours where you can, follow the way of our Indigenous peoples and see where they lived. And yeah.
So is it a self-tour or are these tours being offered by some companies?
There are tours being offered by Indigenous tour operators and Indigenous tour guides.
Okay.
So where would you, what would you Google for that?
You can look at Indigenous Tourism Canada. They post a lot of.
Canada. Okay.
Yeah.
And so they're hiking also? Is that
Yep.
the main?
They do hiking. There's lots of like kayaking tours, especially out west, like Vancouver area. You can go kayaking around Vancouver Island with them. Then there's Haida Gwaii, which is a set of islands off of the west coast, and there's lots to see there and lots to tour there. The oldest totem poles that are still standing are on one of the biggest islands there.
What are the names of those islands?
Haida Gwaii, Haidi, and then Gwaii is Gwai, and it might have one more.
Two eyes.
Yeah.
Two eyes. Okay. Islands. Okay, great. Thanks.
Sorry,
There's a-
Amanda, did you go there? Have you been to Haida Gwaii? Oh.
It's on my list.
Oh, yeah, I was hoping to go this September, October, but I realized that it's much further north than I thought, and it's probably going to be too cold at the time that I want to go, but yeah.
So people who have had a Rocky experience, I want to know what the highlight was for you. Like, what was the emotional impact on you? Maybe we can go back to Sandra first.
Well, as I said earlier, it was so phenomenal sitting on top of the mountain. I think it was Gail who mentioned she thought it was phenomenal standing on the ice field. It was like I was at one with God. Like it was just me and the whole world standing on the tippy top of a mountain. And I'd never had that experience before. I don't do climbing, so it was great that you could just take the ride up there, the gondola up there, and stay at the top. So yeah, for me, you just feel like a speck on the earth, and you just realize how much of earth is up there because it's mountains forever.
Absolutely. How about you, Marilyn?
I think my peak experience was the hot springs at night. Like, yeah, I don't know how to describe it other than pure bliss and magic. That's what it was. Yeah.
And if you want to offer yourself a little touch of luxury on a trip, that is the way to go. Gail, how about you?
I'll remember that for the next trip. Not only did I have that phenomenal connection, if you will, with the world and the universe, but it's inspired me to actually change my life. So I was living in San Francisco, loved it, absolutely thought California was the cat's meow. And I recently moved myself to Las Vegas. Now, Las Vegas isn't just the Strip by any sense of the word. So I live in a development that's 680 some odd acres and 4 lakes. And it's 10 minutes to Red Rock Canyon, to Valley of Fire, 2 hours to Bryce. And I've become enamored with the rocks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's out of this world to drive out of the driveway and look up and you're staring right at the mountain. It feels like it's, like you're touching the moon.
I love that. So I want to ask everybody else too, has it changed anything in what you do? But first I want to hear from Betsy. What was the highlight of your experience on that dude ranch working in the Rockies?
I I guess it was taking hunters out. I mean, because I was alone coming back, and I just, I don't know, I just felt at home in the mountains. I felt like I belonged in the mountains. And it was the first time I ever felt like I had it was a home or a place that I was comfortable.
And did it change anything about the way you travel? Like, do you need regular infusions of mountains when you travel, or?
No, I actually changed that to beaches. So yeah, I've done a lot of traveling on beaches, seeking beaches all over the world instead of mountains.
Who doesn't like a beach?
Amanda, can I
Yeah.
jump in here? I just looked up my contact for Indigenous travel for
Perfect.
about earlier. So it's indigenousbc.com is an organization that has all different Indigenous opportunities. And it can be on mainland BC. One of the ones, we were on a Zoom, and it was just above the ski resort there, on the ski.
Above Whistler?
Yeah, just above Whistler, yeah. And so you don't have to go off and go to an island if you're just getting into Vancouver and Whistler area. There's a whole new organization that's trying to get you to learn about the food, the plants, the rights, the medicinal, everything you could ever want to know. So that's the group that's formed now. Okay.
Yep. And there's so every province in Canada has its version of that group. And then there's a national organization too called Indigenous Canada, Indigenous Tourism Canada. Marilyn, how about you? What was the impact? What was the impact on you? Did you change anything? Did you know?
I don't think so. I think it was just one of many kind of experiences. They all have an impact at, at some level, but nothing other than that magical night in the hot tub, in the hot springs rather. Yeah.
And if you're looking for unique experiences, I once did this because I shot a TV spot through this experience, but you can do it as a tourist too. Just outside of Whistler, BC, you can fly on a helicopter to a glacier to do a little hike around on a glacier. And I shot a TV spot there, but anybody can do it. And it's pretty spectacular. And when I went to New Zealand at the beginning of 2020, I was struck by how much their landscapes and their mountains and their glaciers remind me of Canada. I felt like I was at home. It was like walking, it was like, did I suddenly transport myself to BC? This is crazy. So another spectacular place to see many of the same things. Their glacier lakes aren't quite the same as ours though. Ours are a little more spectacular.
Were you on the South Island?
I was.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's absolutely otherworldly beautiful, but I don't know. I feel like the West might have it beat. except for the beaches. Those are gorgeous. Any other questions that you guys have that we can answer for any of you who haven't been to any part of the Rockies, for people who have?
I wanted to ask if Canada is open to the US now with everything.
Not quite yet. We're still talking about opening our borders, but we haven't hit the level of immunization that our country wants to hit before we open borders. We're not even, in many of our provinces, we're not even in stage 2 of our reopening plans for our own borders.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, Ontario itself is still in probably like one of the strictest phases of lockdown.
Yeah, they just opened it up yesterday. So we're actually going tomorrow from Quebec to Ontario. Very excited. We haven't seen our children since December. So, and in terms of opening Canada, they're hoping to have us around 70-75% immunized by the end of August. So soon, pretty soon, they're going to come.
They're doing well. I just got my second shot today.
There's a women's fashion company called Shepherd's that works out of the rail yards in Ottawa. So every so often I pay attention to their Facebook video in the morning, and so I hear about what's going on with regard to where they are in Ottawa. So they've just been able to open their store.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just finally opened up patios to outside dining, which is
Wow.
Hungarians are rejoicing.
Oh, I bet you.
We haven't had a meal outside of our own homes in a very long time, since November.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
a big deal. It's a
It is
big deal.
And it came with the return of good weather, so we're happy. Any other questions we can answer for you?
I get one of the questions I'd like to ask is
Yeah.
about is it the Queen's Highway that goes through the Rockies in Canada?
Oh, I don't know.
Well-
There's some very famous highway that you can drive through the Rockies.
Okay, the Trans-Canada Highway
That, yes.
goes
Oh,
goes from one end of Canada to the other end. So that's the main road straight across. You can't get lost. There's only one of them. But in order to, you would have to go north of there to get to some of the places we talked about off the highway.
Okay.
We actually have something called the Trans-Canada Trail too, which connects, it's a system of hiking trails that connects our country from end to end.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, all different national parks, provincial parks, municipal parks, but it does connect right across the country.
Wow.
We have a few people that are spending, there's one hiker that has spent the past 4 years, except winters, walking straight across Canada using those trails. Yeah, and has made it as far as Manitoba from the east.
Well, that's a good walk.
It's a good walk. Starts in the spring and stops in the fall when we start to get snow. Yeah.
Well, I love hearing about all these other places that I didn't really know exist. So, you know, I feel so blessed that I've had the good fortune to see Whistler and Vancouver and Banff and Calgary and parts of Alaska and parts of Montana. But it feels like there's still more of that I'd like to see. So some of these places that you've mentioned are really interesting. Thank you.
There's also an absolutely beautiful section of Vancouver on Vancouver Island, and it's called the Sunshine Coast. And there's a long highway that connects the whole thing. And there are some absolutely spectacular little chalets and cottages that you can stay in. There's wineries that you can go to. There's lots of little short hikes that you can do if you're not a big hiker, but you still want to go up to the top of a mountain. Like some of them you can reach in 40 minutes, and it's not that difficult.
That's my speed.
Absolutely beautiful. Like if you still want to do a little bit of a hike and you want a little taste of nature, there's some difficult ones too, but there's some absolutely perfect ones. There's a nice, pretty flat hike out to this place called the Skookumchuck Narrows. And it's where the ocean meets the bay, and it's a swirl of water that you go at like low tide or high tide. It's absolutely spectacular. And that's a pretty flat walk through the forest. It's amazing.
I saw something like that in a little town called Obidos, Portugal.
Oh, really amazing.
Where the ocean meets the lagoon.
Spots in
What?
Portugal.
I'm sorry?
Where is that in relation to like Lisbon or Porto or?
It's between the two, between Lisbon and Porto, kind of halfway point actually, because I had been in Lisbon, went up to Porto by train and then bus down to Obidos. I got it in my head. I wanted to see this place because it has an old walled city and castle and so forth. And while I didn't stay there because that's where all the tourists were, the place that I did stay, the host took me to the lagoon to see the ocean, to see where they went crabbing, to see the pear orchards. Just beautiful, breathtaking. And so the swirl that you're talking about, as soon as you said that, I remembered seeing that.
Yeah, it's definitely worth seeing. My friends and I, we went in November 2020, and it was pouring, it poured rain the entire trip that we were there, but we walked in the pouring rain just to see this, and it was well worth it.
At least you know you don't melt, right?
Oh, no, it's great. Vancouver rain isn't like Ontario rain. It's handleable.
I just got a notice today that Portugal has opened to US tourists. I don't know if all of Portugal or some regions.
Okay. Good to know.
It was a trip that I wanted to take, thought about for a long time. And I think I left my heart there. It was just beautiful, the valleys. And while they don't have mountains like the mountains that we've been talking about, particularly in Porto, the wine valley was magnificent in the way that they carved these granite steps in order to plant the vines. And there's mountains, they're just not as large as what we've been discussing.
Mhm.
Yeah, you stop calling things mountains once you see mountains like that.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I made a trip a few years ago to Austria, and there was a person that was staying at the same hotel that my husband and I were staying at, and we were just discussing how beautiful the mountains were there. And he said, you should go to the Canadian Rockies. These are just like the Canadian Rockies. So that has been my, my thought ever since. And I was just looking in a Road Scholar brochure, and it looks like they don't have anything till 2022. So now they're waiting probably for the summer to have a bunch of different trips. So I'll have to put it off and plan it for 2022.
There's a Canadian company too. It's one of our tour operators called Wild Women Expeditions, and they do tons of Canada too.
Uh-huh.
If you want to check out what they do.
Wild women.
Wild Women Expeditions. It's all women-led tours.
Okay, I'll write that down. And they deal with American
Oh
people.
yeah, anybody. Yeah,
Okay.
and they do trips other places in the world too. Like they do Arctic expeditions and things like that. But because they're based in Canada, they do lots of Canadian adventures too.
Okay, that's great to know. Thanks.
So may I ask, you were talking about going to some places in the fall.
Yeah.
So, I've been sitting in California, now Nevada. What do you call fall as a good weather time for the Rockies?
For the Rockies, like if you're talking fall, like September through late October is pretty good, but you start to get into November and it will be too cold for you. And sometimes like it's dangerous in the mountains with the snow. You can get caught. Even in the fall, if you go to the top, you can get caught in a snowstorm. So you have to be really careful.
So better earlier in September than not.
I would say September to early October would be ideal. It's pretty
Okay.
temperate even in October.
Cool.
Oh, I just remembered, I can't think of the word, the winds that come into Calgary.
Chinook,
The Chinooks, the
Chinooks, yeah.
Chinooks. I don't know if the Americans know about this, but you can come into a city and I don't know, what is the temperature difference? Like it changes by 30 degrees in a day. Yeah. I came in, it was totally cloudy. You couldn't see anything. We drove all the way up to Banff and just a big fog, and then woke up in the morning and there was a mountain next to me. So it's kind of a weird weather experience if you could have one of those when you're here.
It's a little like being in San Francisco, but there's big mountains.
Instead of a big ocean, there's a big mountain. Okay.
Excellent. Well, ladies, thank you so much for sharing an hour of your evening with me tonight. I really appreciate it. I hope you've learned something. We will have editorial springing off the back end of this session. We have a few contributed articles coming in on the Rockies. I will be writing one both as an overview on this and a few on my adventures. If you have anything you would like to write about any of your experiences, whether they be Rockies or other travel experiences, we are always looking for contributed articles. So email me at amanda@journeywoman.com to pitch your idea. And we'd love to hear from you. I hope you all have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Amanda.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Paul.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.